Higher Education, Science and Innovation Minister Dr. Nzimande says his department has reassigned 15 million rand to research the effect of African medicines. Researchers will look at whether Umhlonyane can combat coronavirus, among other things. He joins me now tonight. Good evening, Minister Nzimande. It's a pleasure to have you on the program. It's interesting to see that you're going to be conducting as much research as you've put on the table. I wonder who's going to be part of this process and how long before we actually have any tangible results that are coming through?
Good evening, Kathy, to you and your viewers and listeners. Thank you for inviting me. The first issue that I just need to point out by way of a quick background is that since this department was there shortly after our transition to democracy in 1994, it has actually developed work in what we refer to as indigenous knowledge systems. So it's not a new thing, what we are doing now, and we've also been having structured relationships which we continue to have with associations that represent traditional healers, herbalists in our country. We have always been doing work here because we do believe that lots of herbs that are found in our country have got a lot of medicinal value. For example, for those who do not know, South Africa is in the top 10 of the countries that are most biodiverse in terms of levels of diversity. The species that you find here, whether it's animals, it's plants, and many other species. So there is a lot of potential. The reason why also we are focusing on this has to do with the fact that lots of companies that have got monies from Europe, from North America, they come and do this research here, discover medicinal value from some of our indigenous plants, for instance, and then those get registered overseas and they get sold as various products, whether it's cosmetics, whether it's tablets, or other forms of medicinal and other uses, back to us in South Africa. So we are trying as South Africa to invest a lot in indigenous knowledge system. Now, COVID-19, just like the HIV/AIDS pandemic, which we are still doing work on that, by the way, we are still doing research. COVID-19 has been another challenge now that requires that as government we actually invest money into research into our own traditional herbs. In particular, this one known as Umhlonyane in the Nguni languages. You know, that to see, because it's been a herb that we know, which has been established, you know, that it has been able actually to treat symptoms for flu or fevers, you know, and so on. Whether there is anything that can be found beyond that, including its Madagascan version, which we are also doing work with the Madagascans to actually look into whether Umhlonyane could actually have some value. So it's part of work that we've been doing, which is ongoing. Now, indigenous knowledge systems, we want to invest more into this, Kathy. In fact, we are working now towards establishing a proper institute where we'll also be working with some of the traditional healers and our scientists to actually do more research on traditional herbs. Of course, we're often guided by those herbs that some of our traditional leaders have been using to see for different kinds of diseases or illnesses, to see if there is anything or any products that are contained in there that actually can be of long-lasting medicinal value.
Of course, the traditional sector has long said that it has been sidelined and ignored by government. And in fact, when the question of Umhlonyane came up, they were the first ones to say if government had been investing in some of the knowledge that we had, we would be much further down the line.
Well, Kathy, I think that to a certain extent we hear that criticism. We would have liked to have done more. For instance, we do not have enough resources to be able to put into a lot more work that we would like to do. Just to give you an idea that the total budget, for instance, of the Department of Science and Innovation is just under 9 billion in total, as compared, for instance, with the NSFAS, the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, it's 35 billion. So you can see the difference that is there, that we do not have enough money, which is a problem continent-wide, which I would like to address this as one of my key challenges. Because what then happens is that you find a lot of companies, as I say, from rich countries, investing a lot into research and development, into our own herbs and other plants, and so on. It's not only, by the way, plants for medicinal use. Some of the big pharmaceutical companies that are in the cosmetic industry, they are investing a lot of money in terms of research into this. So part of the challenge is that we do not have enough resources. But despite that, we have established this section in my Department of Science and Innovation that deals with indigenous knowledge. We are going to be fighting for more money to put into more research and development. But, Kathy, we are not looking only into money from Treasury or from the fiscus. We are also looking into money that we can mobilize from the private sector. Because you will find that in many of the rich countries, by the way, most of the money into research and development comes from the private sector. That's why today, partly also I was announcing the results of this innovation survey, but by business, just to give an idea how much is business investing into innovation and research and development. One of the things that I'm doing now to try and leverage more resources for research and development is that I have appointed an industrial envoy, Mr. Mandela, in order to build closer relations with the private sector, because that is where more resources are, to try and interest the private sector also into investing more into research in our own country, which would include research that is concerned about getting more value out of our own indigenous plants and other related aspects of our huge biodiversity that we have in the country.
Mr.
But
Nzimande,
commitment to work with traditional leaders, we are.
Sorry to come in there, we're quickly running out of time. On the issue of higher institutions of higher learning, especially going into 2021, I just want to find out from you, how much pressure do you think that you will, or maybe not pressure, but when do you think a decision will need to be made about when this school year, the calendar 2020 year, is going to be finalized, and what the implications of that are going to be on the sector that you're representing?
Well, Kathy, as you would know, we have announced before, we have got a fairly elaborate plan on how we are trying to save the 2020 academic year. Part of implementing that strategy is the fact that between now and August, 1/3 of our students are going back to universities, mainly final year students, as well also as a portion of students from our technical and vocational education and training colleges in a phased manner. So there is a plan because we are committed to try our best to save the academic year. But at the same time, we have to save lives. So we have to try and do both things, but saving lives comes before. So if the virus, we are able, for instance, to move to level 2 and later level 1 in terms of alert levels, we are actually going to be then phasing in and getting more and more students to go back to our institutions. But what is clear from now is that we are not going to finish the 2020 academic year in 2020. We are likely to actually finish it in early 2021. As to how many months into 2021, it's difficult to tell at the moment. but we have got plans to do that, which is something also that is going to have an effect into the 2021 academic year. So we do have a plan. We have not taken a decision that we're giving up on the 2020 academic year, not at all. That's why also we are working closely with the Department of Basic Education, that as also basic education is phasing in the return of learners to school, we are working in cooperation in order to make sure that there is an alignment between the school year and the academic year, and we are also able to share experiences and manage this jointly. But what is clear is that we do not now already, given the time that we have lost, enough time to be able to finish the 2020 academic year all before the end of 2020. But commitment, yes, we are very much committed,
Sure.
Provided, of course, Kathy, we work together with all the stakeholders, parents, students, staff, workers generally, because unless we do that, and as a country as a whole, by the way, unless we are able to follow the health protocols of physical distancing, maintaining hygiene, and all the other things that the Department of Health is asking us to do, we are not going to be able to defeat this virus. So it's also all dependent on how, as South Africans, we are able to work together in defeating COVID-19. That will create a better climate to be able also to finish the academic year in our sector of post-school education and training.
All right, Minister, let's leave it there for tonight.